Oh, hey guys. I'm sorry I didn't hear you come in. Just doing a little bit of picking and messing around with the guitar. Helps the brain process things, if you know what I mean. Wow. Those of you that don't know, I'm Mr. Scott, School Resource Officer for Hot Springs Elementary School in Hot Springs, North Carolina. And one of the things I love to do is to read and tell stories. And my students will tell you that I can tell some good stories sometimes, or at least that's what they tell me. They may just be being nice to me. But I've got a story for you tonight. Another one of our Jack Tales. Oh, I love Jack Tales. Stories that were written and told a long time ago. And these stories sometimes have their roots or beginnings way back in the old country of England and Ireland and Scotland, and when those folks moved here to the United States and started settling here before it was the United States, they brought these stories with them, and they got handed down and passed down, and they are really good to listen to. So I thought I'd read you one, if you don't mind. You might even learn something from it. Don't know. Let's take a quick look. This is one of my favorites. It's called Sop Doll. Yes, Sop Doll. One time, Jack started out to hunt him a job of work. He pulled out and traveled on till he got to another settlement. He ran across a fellow that told him there was a man there that wanted to hire someone to do some work for him. So he told Jack where the man's house was, and Jack went over there, stopped by the gate, and hollered out, "Hello, the house!" You always introduced yourself before you approached a man's house back then. The man came out and asked Jack what did he want. So Jack told him. The man told Jack to come on in, asked him what his name was. And then he says, "Well, Jack, I've got a mill on a water course down the road a piece, but I got no time to run it. I've hired several men to grind down there, but the very first night something has always killed them. Looked like it was some kind of poison. Now I thought I'd tell you, Jack, so you'd know all about it before you took the job." "Well," says Jack, "if you don't care, we might as well walk down there and look that mill over, and I'll make my decision." So they went on down the hill to the mill. Now it was a great big old log house with a fireplace and everything fixed up for anyone who wanted to tend the mill and cook and sleep there as well. There were 12 little windows high up on the wall and had no other window lights stuck in them. No lanterns or nothing. Jack looked it over right good and says, "Well, Daddy, I believe I might take the job." The man says, "All right, Jack, I see you're no coward. Now, I'll give you half of what you make and give you your rations too. I'll go back to the house and get you some meat and meal for your supper, and you can start in the grinding as soon as anybody comes up." Well, when word got out that the mill was opened up again, lots of customers started coming in. And Jack had to grind right up until it was plumb dark. A lot of them wanting to get their corn ground up before the mill operator something happened to him, like it always happened in the past. Finally, he got the last turn ground out, and he shut the mill down. He had no more got the water turned out of the mill race when here come an old man on a sorry-looking mule. He got off and walked to the mill with a little poke of corn on his shoulder, a little bag of corn on his shoulder. He had a long gray beard, and he was one-eyed, only had one eye. "How do you do, Jack? How you getting on?" "All right, I guess," says Jack. "I hope you're well." Jack can be very polite. "Well, about like common," says the old man. Well, then Jack looked at him and looked him up and down and says, "I don't believe I ever saw you before." "No," the old man told him, "I'm a stranger." "Well, how in the world did you know my name, Jack?" asked him. "Oh, I knowed you a time I saw you," the old man said. I've come a long way today, Jack, and I wondered, could you grind me some corn for me? I couldn't get here no sooner. Why, sure, says Jack. You wait here a minute and I'll go turn the water back in again. See, the mill at that time was operated by running water, which turned a big wheel, the running water did, and that turned the grinders that ground the corn. So Jack started the mill up and ground the stranger's corn for him. Then he shut the mill down again. When he got back to the old man, says to him, Jack, you're the first one ever done me right here at this mill, and I'm going to give you a present. Well, he reached in his big coat and took out a silver knife and handed it to Jack. Jack thanked him, and the old man left. Then Jack built him up a big fire in the fireplace and got out his skillet. Now, Jack didn't have no lamp, but the fire gave out plenty of enough light, and it just so happened, though, that the moon was shining and all, and 12 of them windows all lit up around him. Made it pretty near as bright as day almost there inside the cabin. So Jack was cutting up his meat with that silver knife when all at once it got thick dark in there. Jack looked up, and there in every one of them 12 windows there sat a big black cat. They were all looking right at Jack, their eyes just a-shining. Well, Jack wasn't scared much. He went on and put his meat in the skillet, set it on the fire, and stooped down to turn it with his knife. He paid no attention to them cats. But just about the time his meat begun to fry, Jack heard one cat light down from the window, one of the windows, and light on the floor. He went on a-cooking. Next thing he knowed, there was a big black cat a-sitting right up in the fireplace with him. Jack went to turn the meat, and that cat stuck out his paw toward the skillet and says, "Sop Doll." Jack reached out right quick with his knife and said, "You better not sop your doll in my meat, or I'll cut it off." Well, the old cat jerked its foot back and sat there for a while. Them other cats in the windows stirred around a little bit, but they stayed up in the windows. Then Jack saw that big cat reach for his skillet again. And it says, "Sop Doll." Jack comes at it with his knife again and says, "I done told you not to sop your doll in here. You try it one more time now, and I'll sure as heck whack it off." Well, the old cat drawed back and sat there switching its tail the way cats do. Them other cats stirred a little bit, and one or two of them sort of meowed or made some other noises. Then the cat flopped its foot right smack in the middle of Jack's meat gravy and says, "Sop Doll." Jack came down with his knife right quick and cut that cat's paw plumb off. The old cat jumped for a window, and all 12 of them cats buggered off. And they were gone from there before Jack could turn around to look. Now Jack went to throw that meat in the fire. Instead of a cat's paw, there was a woman's hand lying there in the skillet that had a ring on one finger. Jack took the hand out and wrapped it up in some paper he had and put it up on the fireboard. Then he washed and scoured his skillet, cooked him some meat and a pone of cornbread, got done eating, and went off to bed. The next morning, that man that owned the mill got up real early, and he says to his wife, he says, "Old lady, you better get up and cook me some breakfast. I reckon I have to go make some arrangements about burying that boy today," referring to Jack, of course. Well, his old lady sort of scrounging around in the bed and said she was sick and I couldn't get up, so the man fixed himself some breakfast and headed off down to the mill. And there was Jack, just a grinding corn like there was nothing at all wrong. The man got into where Jack was and hollered at him and says, "Well, I wasn't expecting to see you alive, Jack. Thought I'd be burying you today." Well, Jack hollered back at him and says, well, it's a good thing you don't have to do that. Well, the man hollered back in Jack's ear because, the machinery of the mill was going and everything. When you get that turn ground out and shut down the mill, I got to talk to you right now. So directly Jack went and pulled the water gate shut so the mill's racket and machinery would stop and him and that man could have a talk. Now, the old man says, now, Jack, you tell me what happened last night. And Jack stood there and he related to him about all them black cats, and he told about the old man giving him that silver knife. The man says, I see through the whole thing now. It's a witch gang. They've wanted to have their lodge meetings here in the mill, and when that cat sopped in the grease, she poisoned it in some way or the other. Well, Jack said he had an idea that was how it was. Said that was why he scoured his skillet. The man said it was a good thing he done that. Then Jack told him about the cat's paw turning into a woman's hand. And says, you might not believe that, but I've got it right here up on the mantle to show to you. He got the woman's hand and unwrapped it. And the man looked at it, looked it over, looked at the ring on one of the fingers and says, now, I declare, I'd never thought it. He says, now, Jack, you lock the mill up and come on back home with me. We got to tend to this right now. It's a good thing that knife was made out of silver. You can't hurt a witch with a knife, or a bullet even, unless it's silver. So they went back down to the house, and the man's old woman and wife was still in bed. He asked her if she felt any better. And she said no, she could not get up for a little while. She was going to lay there for a little while longer. So the man says to her, you want me to send for the doctor? And she shook her head and said, no, don't send for him, but send for some of the neighbor women. He asked her which woman folk she wanted to come over, and she named out 11 of the women in the settlement. So the man sent word to him, and before any of them got there, he says to his wife, he says, let me see your right hand. Well, the woman sort of twisted around, poked out her left hand instead, and the man says, no, hit your right hand I want to see. So she twisted and turned and poked out her left hand again. That's when he reached over and pulled out her right arm, and there was no hand on it. Gone. Well, the women folks had come rapidly as soon as they got word. The man said to Jack, I've been suspecting my old woman was mixed up with that witch gang, but I'd never allowed she was the head of it. Jack says, oh, surely not. The man says, yeah, I knowed it was her hand time I saw the ring on it. Well, when the last of them 11 women got in with his old lady, that man shut the door on them and fired up the house. Them 12 witches started crackling and popping, and every one of them was burnt plumb up. So Jack made an end to this witch gang in that settlement, and that man never did have no more trouble about his mill. And Jack ended up going back home with a whole parcel load of cornmeal for his mama to make cornbread with. That's just a short story about Jack and Sop Doll. I remember that story from a long time ago. Now, one of the things I want you to remember, it is just a story, and it's based on stuff and the way people thought back a long time ago. Okay? Speaking of Sop Doll, that noise you're hearing is the cat running around on the floor. So, before we go out, I want to just remind you guys, wash your hands, be nice to one another, do as you're told, and I'll see you guys back later.